Hey, this is Pete with the Small Business Resource Center and the Small Business Resource Center YouTube channel. I'm going to give a little outlook of the economy for the next approximate year. Keep in mind, this is my opinion based on research. So take it with a grain of salt, and who knows? I'm always optimistic that everything's going to be great, but who knows? Um, First of all, I'd like to comment as far as an economic or real estate collapse. It's tough to be able to say that there's going to be a real estate collapse when demand has been so high and, of course, supply has been so low. Even though there's been drastic increases in interest rates, it is slowing down the higher end market, but the lower end market is still extremely strong. And of course, this depends on where you live also. Market's not exactly the same everywhere. It's funny when I got into real estate. When it came to real estate, some people constantly would tell me at all these sales conferences, trainers, everything's the same everywhere. What you can do here, you can do somewhere else, and everything's the same. So, no, it's not. But anyways, let's see what we got here. Interesting little article here from Bankrate. It says, "Will the Federal Reserve, will the Fed raise interest rates one more time this year?" Some economists aren't convinced. This is Jerome Powell. Um, I actually don't have the video, but I was watching it a couple weeks ago. He actually said they are going to raise the interest rates one more time, and they said America and Americans, quote unquote, are doing great. I would not really agree with that statement, not unless, you're corrupt. But anyways, aside from that, inflation's pretty high. We all know that. Let's not try to fool each other. It's been the highest. They've had so many interest rate hikes that it's unbelievable. We went from about a 3%. You could get a loan for about 3%. Now we just wrote a deal at 450,000 with 7.5% interest rate. My opinion, ridiculous. So going past that and what the Fed's doing, that's what they're doing. Now we're looking at the next thing that I'm reviewing here, and this is from September 12th. We're looking at Fortune, and it says we're at the first inning of commercial real estate correction. Billionaire real estate investor Jeff Green. I didn't read this whole article, but I'm just looking at that. Um, Ever since COVID, many large companies have been getting out of big projects. So, and big buildings, and they're letting a lot of people work from home. So it's working pretty good for some companies and not so good for others. But when you're looking at a lot of these large commercial buildings, adaptive reuse is what's been sustaining a lot of them. And some large firms have been going into, um, well, towards foreclosure or restructuring from their debtors. So they're stating this is the first inning. A lot of these problems have been going on for a couple years. So, in my opinion, an article like this is saying it's expect to get much worse. Some people who've had loans that I've seen with different banks have had flex rates. These flex rates have been terrible for people. They came in really low. The investment was doing very good. Now the rate's shooting up, and some people are losing money. So I've seen different videos online where larger investors are like, well, I like the asset, but I'm selling it because it's no longer profitable. It was profitable at 3%. And now that it's at 8 or whatever they're charging, I'm actually losing money off of this deal. Nobody likes to lose money off a real estate deal. Okay, next we're looking at household debt. Household debt is reached 17.6 trillion. Credit card debt exceeding 1 trillion. This is August 8th. So this is obviously a pretty bad thing. The reason why this is happening is because everything's increasing. So people, the average consumer, families, they're using credit cards because they have a lack of income. And of course, you got to eat, you got to pay for gas, you got to pay for whatever you have to, and people are putting it on credit cards. Some people, yeah, it's correct, they're probably buying all these other things that they don't need, but many people are putting things they do need on credit cards. So that's another really, really bad sign of all the things that are coming here. Oh, okay, we got that here. And now we're looking at default rates for student loans. Student loans just became due in October. There was student loan forgiveness. The student loan forgiveness never happened. First of all, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I try to look at both sides of every discussion, and it just seems like it was never a legal thing. I'm not saying it was pandering to try to get votes, but many people are trying to make it seem like Republicans don't want to help people. Keep in mind, this is not really a political channel, but it's the only way to explain it is to tell you what the news has said. And basically, they're saying it's just not legal. You can't use government money to pay people's student loans off. So, not saying they're right or wrong, just explaining what I've seen as far as videos and what other people have posted. So that has never happened, did not pass. Now we're looking at the default rates, up 2.6%. That's a pretty high change in a very short amount of time. And with the student loans that are now due, the default rate's expected to go much higher because they were deferred for 2 or 3 years, dependent upon what people selected and when they filed. But it could have been defaulted, actually deferred for quite some time. So 1 out of every 10 Americans are defaulting, according to this. And it's an average of 7% at any given time. So these rates went down. This chart's not new here, but let's see. And the outlook for 2023, it says staggering numbers here. We've got $1.63 trillion in outstanding student loan debt and 43.4 million in defaults. And we want to keep in mind that this is not counting October because now the student loans are due. And this is where a problem would occur. But I have actually told other people that I don't expect any problems recently because of this. And I'm going to show you my reaction to this video here because this has information that I think it's important for people to see. So you're not just getting what might be my opinion.
3 years of a pandemic pause, federal student loan repayments are set to restart Sunday, 3 months after the Supreme Court struck down President Biden's student loan forgiveness program. Now, many people are facing thousands of dollars of debt, and they say they still have no way of paying it back. NBC News business and data reporter Brian Chung has more.
Josie Bridges is a single mom living paycheck to paycheck. It's hard enough dealing with rising prices at the store.
My student payments are sitting right now at about $400 is what they're expecting each month. So, I mean, that's my food budget right there.
The pandemic freeze on student loan payments allowed Josie to open up her own salon in Portland, Oregon. But with $4,000 in outstanding debt from her community college degree, she says she simply won't be able to make the payments once they resume in October.
It's kind of out of my hands at this point. If I can't make it, I can't make it.
It's a game changer.
The Biden administration's plan to forgive up to $20,000 in student debt would have wiped Josie's slate clean. Instead, a challenge from 6 Republican states resulted in a Supreme Court decision in June striking down the plan after Josie had already put thousands of dollars in investments into her salon.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future, and that's kind of scary.
The median student loan borrower has between $20,000 to $25,000 in outstanding student debt. Over 40 million borrowers had interest accrual restart this month, with the first payments in over 3 years due in just days. Economists like Brian Adams say it won't trigger a recession, but will weigh on those least able to bear it.
So the reason why I'm pausing this here is because I want to explain this. In my opinion, most people who have student loan debt did not buy a salon. But opening up a salon is very expensive. So people are making their own choices on what they're doing as far as their own budgeting. So it's a challenge for me to be able to say, hey, look, you know you had student loan debt. You're going to do something else with the money, whatever that is. Get a salon. In my opinion, the average person probably got a car, spent the money on other stuff, and got more debt. Did not invest in a business. But if you did invest in a business, the business should be expected to generate enough income so you can pay any and all your bills if that's your sole income, as well as any debts that you have. Let's keep it going.
Anybody that is part of an underserved community, they tend to have higher debt than those that are not in underserved communities, and they tend to have lower incomes. So that's a potential issue.
It is officially time for a student loan repayment boycott.
Some borrowers taking to social media to urge others not to pay, like Maya Dawit, who owes over $15,000 and has no plans to pay in October.
They'll potentially garnish wages. Maybe they'll take from your tax refund. Good luck. I think I made like $10,000 this year, so you can have it all if you want it.
Education Secretary Miguel Cardona says missed payments won't immediately trigger garnished wages or credit score hits.
We know many of our borrowers are going to struggle to make payments, but we want to make sure that we're not sending their name to credit agencies. So we're going to hold them harmless for a year as they're getting back up.
Among longer-term options for relief, see if your employer offers repayment assistance programs and consider the SAVE program, which adjusts monthly bills based on borrowers' income. Josie's weighing her options, but says it's going to be tough either way.
At this moment, it's either come up with money to pay for these now student loans that I'm having to pay, or make it to where my business doesn't function as it needs to.
And our thanks to Brian Chung for that report. By the way, students who graduated in the spring, they get a little more time. They don't have to make payments until the grace period expires, which is usually 6 to 9 months after graduation.
I wish for the amazing.
So when you're looking at this, my forecast basically is we're probably not going to see any major change in the economy for approximately a year, maybe a little bit more than a year. If the government's going to not force anybody to pay many of these outstanding student loans for a year or report it against their credit, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's a pretty big Band-Aid. When that Band-Aid gets ripped off, that's when there's going to be a problem. And they said approximately 1 year. So you're looking at November, December, January of 2024/2025. So there's the outlook. Let me know your thoughts and comments below. It's Pete with the Small Business Resource Center and the Small Business Resource Center YouTube channel. Have a great day.